Um, okay, the meeting is now live stream. So great. So hi everyone, welcome to the U-14 finals for JWSDC. Congratulations both teams for making it this far. My name is Xander. I'll be the chair for today's debate. Before we go on, it would be great if the panel could also introduce themselves, preferably in the order in which they appear on the tab. So I'm assuming we can start with Ethan.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, everyone. My name's Ethan. No preferred pronouns, but please do refer to the panel as a whole. Congrats for making it to the grand final and all the best.
Hi, everyone. I'm Manaswin. Congrats on making it to the finals. No preferred pronouns.
Next person should be Retno. Are you here?
Hi, my name is Ratna. I will be the chair. I will be the panel in this room. She, her pronouns. Good luck.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ukheli. He, him pronouns. Congratulations on making it this far and all the best for the round.
All right, that's great. So thank you for all of the panelists for introducing themselves. 4 general reminders before we start this debate as a whole. Firstly, be sure to indicate any POI preferences that you may have before you start your speech. Secondly, if you have any preferred gender pronouns, please also indicate that as well. As for the judges, please do refer us to the panel as a whole. Thirdly, I will be signaling timings in the chat, but please also keep track of your own time on your own for your own speeches and others as well, just in case the judges are busy taking notes. And fourthly and lastly, I would ask if all observers turn off their cameras and microphone so as to not disrupt the speakers while they're doing their speeches. As for judges, if you do not want to be shown during the live stream, please also turn off your camera as well. With all of that being said, under the motion, this House believes that concepts of aesthetic beauty are inherently oppressive. I would like to invite the Prime Minister to open the debate. Here.
Okay, so firstly, I would like to accept POIs verbally. Now, we are currently in a world fixated on appearances. The appeal of aesthetic beauty captivates minds and shapes perceptions. Yet beneath all of this lies a web of oppression and harm that constantly is reinforced through our societies. This is why we're so proud to propose. Now we have 2 pieces of framing. Firstly, these concepts of aesthetic beauty are clear, but let me just frame it out for you really quickly. These concepts could be things like aesthetically pleasing objects or sceneries like sunsets or minimalistic designs. Or it could be aesthetic pleasing looks on human styles or anything else like architecture. Second piece is our burden, which is that whichever side can benefit everyone in society the most can win. But we think the opposition has to prove why aesthetic beauty concepts are not oppressive and don't harm people in society. Which leads us to our first argument, which is that aesthetic beauty concepts are toxic and confined into majority views. And there are 3 layers under this. Firstly, you'll be hated if you are in this minority and you look and believe a certain way as to what's beautiful. This is different than the majority, or you think some things are ugly when other people think it's pretty. This is true because beauty standards or concepts of aesthetic beauty often follow the majority group. Even if we were to characterize this in a world in which we're accepting of all beauty concepts, there's no denying that aesthetic beauty concepts and these trends follow the majority group. This means intersectional oppression, and minority groups would be discriminated against or seen as disgusting. It's really common in our world and on social media that intersectional oppression exists because of aesthetic beauty concepts. For instance, if you like anime, you're oppressed because of the Asian aesthetic that has been romanticized to a disgusting degree. If you like Black and adopt this aesthetic, you're also oppressed. It's because of the fact that we have to listen to what a majority group states, that all minority groups are oppressed, and only our side benefits the minority groups. And secondly, this is really bad because of the fact that if an object is beautiful, an object is only beautiful if it provides a sense of aesthetic pleasure. This means that even minority groups in this instance, even those who, let's say, don't like sunsets or don't like popular aesthetics, have the right to see beauty and have the right to look at things they deem beautiful. But this is totally not going to happen if they live under the constant pressure that they're going to be oppressed as soon as the views oppose the majorities. We need to heavily acknowledge that everyone has vastly different views on many subjects due to their different cultures, backgrounds, religious, moral, and ethical beliefs. These beliefs shouldn't be discriminated against at all, since it creates diversity and encourages different views. Diversity encourages creativity since there are different views and definitions of beauty. If these are discriminated against, it's called racism. Something else that we are going to add onto the social media argument is that it enforces extremely unrealistic beauty standards. Those beauty standards would become popular and would directly oppress many of those who don't share these same beliefs. Remember, diversity around the world means very different beauty standards around the world and means very different beings to beautiful. Another exclusive harm that you get on the side up is the fact that there are going to be more racist views towards certain trends that are not of a majority. This is really evident, especially on social media platforms like TikTok. For instance, a while back, people were taking nail art pictures off a Chinese website and claiming they were actually Korean or Japanese. Of course, we get a completely different reaction when we differentiate between the two. And on one hand, we have to acknowledge that Japanese and Korean modern cultures and aesthetics are being romanticized, but instead Chinese aesthetics are seen as a meme because all of the language mockery trends from a while ago compared to those other two. It's due to the fact that Korean or Japanese aesthetics overpower that of many other Asian countries. And this shows how oppressive concept of beauty may actually be. In this instance I've just talked about, people are literally rebranding aesthetics and cultures to suit the majority group because of the fact that for a while anime was romanticized on TikTok by the majority group and opposes the minority. So if people see something that they think is aesthetically pleasing, they're going to try to conform to it because they often can't live up to these standards, and these standards will not make them happy. Therefore, I'm so proud to propose. Thank you.
We thank that speaker for that fine speech. The speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 7 seconds. Now to open the case for side opposition, I would like to invite the leader of opposition. Here.
Appeal verbally, pronounce he, him. 3, 2, 1. It was very clear that the proposition is taking this debate very narrow. I mean, they claim in the characterization wasn't that narrow, but their arguments and their whole points were very narrow. They only talked about the beauty standards that are European and mainstream and the majority minded and why that is bad, but I strongly believe that that is not the only form of aesthetic beauty. And there are many types of aesthetic beauty, like they have mentioned, which some are actually benefiting people in many ways. So they're not inherently oppressive. Okay, let's first talk about the path to victory in our world. We can prove that there are good parts that is not that oppressive. And inherently oppressive means that it is oppressive in every way. It is inescapable, which we strongly reject. This is not a debate of aesthetic beauty of majorities does more harm than good. We are not debating on that topic. Okay, so some framing. Concept of aesthetic beauty, different diverse standards exist, and what you perceive as pretty and appealing changes from person to person. So why won't people push extremely traditional standards, for example, like skinny and pale, or it equals good? Why would they not say that? Because society has progressed so much that those ideas are outdated, and because of the development of society, aesthetic beauty evolved as well, and it looks like a step in like plus-size models. People now shift away from standards but respect each other's looks. And subjectivity and diversity is true because there are many standards. There are many communities that accept different types of standards, and there's a European style, there's an Afrocentric style, and the impact is that many people can get appreciated and liked from certain communities. This also washes out their arguments about beauty being centered around like being European and like whites and about racism happening. We reject that because there are communities that appreciate you, and if you like anime communities do oppress you, do accept you, and that also tells your identity. I'll take it in the PR. I'll do it now. Yes, do it. First argument is personal expression and identity. So why is this true? Expressing yourself through things like makeup, fashion, or art that you deem is aesthetically beautiful, or what other people deem is aesthetically beautiful, is really present in today's society. And for example, we can wear interesting clothes. You can wear bright clothes in order to express yourself, and this is good. Even though it doesn't mean that everyone accepts bright clothes or everyone accepts like over makeup, the fact that you are able to do it and the fact that many people receive it as aesthetically beauty shows who you are and builds up your own identity. Or like drawing special arts too. Drawing special arts that has a specific meaning of being beautiful that can also show your identity and also help yourself express yourself. And assuming without conceding that you don't get accepted by other people, the fact that you oppress yourself in some way, the fact that you express yourself in some way that you think is aesthetic is empowering for those people. So what is the impact here? Identity. It shows who you are, and which leads to happiness of the people because you can express yourself and you can express your emotions. You can also get like sympathy or like support from other people by telling your emotions through what you think is beautiful, whether it is your face or your fashion or your art. It can also show confidence because now you know who you are. Now you have told the world who you are, giving benefits to the individual. Second argument about breaking oppression and social movements and minority beauty. So why is this true? Social movements that use beauty to break oppressions were very clear. For example, hippie fashion. It broke away from the original tradition of trying to earn a lot of money and instead showed through the aesthetic beauty of fashion of why living a hippie is good. Or like Afrocentric fashion. It broke away from the European-centric mind and actually showed the beauty of African fashion and why it was so good. Or like punk fashion. They're wearing broken clothes that were like ripped clothes that break away from social norms, which led to like young people rejecting social norms that you should always be correct and you should always be like fun. Or example, hip hop empowering Black rights. That is why this type of art or your expression of your body really enhances like social rights. What does this mean? This means that this aesthetic beauty helps you break away from the social norms that breaks away oppression and actually increases the rights of minorities in today's debates. So we strongly believe that because there are very good parts of this that you cannot reject, there is still good parts of aesthetic beauty. It is not inherently oppressive.
We thank that speaker for that fine speech. The speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 8 seconds. Now to extend the proposition's case, I'd like to invite the DPM. Here.
Okay, just give me a second to set my timer. Okay, am I audible and visible?
Yep, you're both.
Thank you. Throughout history, concepts of aesthetic beauty have played a prominent role in human societies, influencing cultural norms, personal identities, and social interactions. However, a closer look reveals that inherent flaws and adverse consequences associated with the imposition of rigid beauty standards. While aesthetic beauty itself is subjective and can bring joy and inspiration, as the opposition claims, it is a societal enforcement and narrow definition of beauty that give rise to these oppressive dynamics. So proud to propose. Before I go into my arguments, a few problems that I have with their case. First of all, the opposition opened their speech on how there are more aesthetic concepts and we're only talking about European standards or whatever. But we tell you that these other aesthetic beauty concepts are not as prevalent, and the European standards are oppressing other cultures and other forms of aesthetic beauties. That is why these big majority of aesthetic beauty concepts are oppressing other ones. Second of all, they said that aesthetic concepts shape your identity, but it isn't their burden to prove whether it shapes your identity or not, or whether it makes people happy or not. They have to prove why it isn't going to oppress other groups of people, not on whether it's a good or bad idea. Because sure, we can say that the concept is good and it gives people happiness, but it still oppresses other people. This line of rebuttal essentially takes down their entire first speech because all they were talking about was expression and why that's good for people. Third of all, they said it breaks away from oppression. But first of all, just because you have different concepts around the world doesn't mean that it's not going to be oppressed. We think generally it's going to be shamed, like how anime or email aesthetics were shamed in the first place on social media. Now onto my second argument on why this creates a culture of body shaming and beauty standards. First of all, I think generally aesthetic concepts make people think they have to look a certain way or they have to be a certain way in order to fit into the aesthetic beauty standards. This is especially true and prevalent in women. Women generally think they have to be skinny or they have to have an hourglass body shape in order to be pretty, or they have to have nice facial features that can't have breakouts because then they become disgusting. So obviously, there are many beauty standards that people all around the world try and combine in this one European white beauty standard. The pressure to conform into these beauty ideals can lead to body shaming, and the pressure is very real, right? When individuals are judged, criticized, and ridiculed based on their appearance, body shaming can then result in low self-esteem, body image issues, and generally mental health issues or eating disorders, for example. I'll be expanding on these harms later in my argument. The second problem with aesthetic concepts is that something is only perceived to be pretty if a famous person in power or a person in power thinks it's pretty. Like when famous Hollywood actors come up with new styles, it quickly spreads across social media and spreads across society. But when like a random person comes up with a new style or thinks like an unpopular style is pretty, they're shamed for having bad taste or they're shamed for being weird, right? These concepts of aesthetic beauty are inherently oppressive because they make people more insecure about their bodies and more insecure about what they think. then they'll be less likely to voice their opinions on social media if they think like black aesthetics are pretty or anime aesthetics are pretty. Therefore, this creates a toxic culture and a toxic mindset that people have to follow in order to fit into society's standards. The third problem this causes the third problem that aesthetic concepts causes that it also harms little children. Because of these beauty standards, like women have to have big butts, or they have to wear lots of makeup, or they have to paint their nails. Therefore, young women or young girls from a young age, like from 7-year-olds, she could start like sexualizing themselves, like wanting to wear makeup, wanting to be able to look pretty, wanting to be able to wear heels, going to the gym to get big butts or whatever, have a nice body shape. This also makes it hard for young kids because it makes it think that young kids, they think that you have to do all these things in order to look pretty in the future or in order to get a boyfriend in the future. We do not want to endorse these children into toxic beauty standards for all these reasons so proud to propose.
The speaker spoke for 3 minutes and 59. I would like to thank that speaker for that fine speech. Now to continue the opposition's case, I would like to invite the DLO. Here.
Yeah, am I both visible and audible?
Yep, you're both.
Yep. Three, two, one. Panel, what we told you from Charlie's second argument is that we can break oppression and social movements. What this now essentially means is that social movements that can use beauty to break oppression and the new constant beauty movements going on. What this now means is that this completely neglects or this completely mitigates a lot of a portion of the arguments. We tell there's many different arts and many different fashions, and there's many different types of beauty, such as hippie fashion or fairy color or Afrocentric fashion. Contrary to their arguments, we say there's an entire prevention just by this argument alone. We say we're still winning. Two things I'm going to do. First, I'm going to tell you why beauty is subjective within the minds alone. But second, I'll tell you why aesthetic beauty is very beneficial on a practical level. First rebuttals then about when they say that this aesthetic beauty is toxic and only enforces bad beauty standards. Two layers here. First, we say that contrary to this, there's many different styles that came into beauty, what I said in my intro. But second of this is that Charlie did a great job in reframing this motion, just saying why this motion is subjective. Why is this so? He told you two layers of argument and analysis of why this is true. First, we tell you that it's different for every single person. It's empirically true. He said concept of aesthetic beauty. We said individuals can decide in their based on personal taste. But second and more importantly, we told you how entire concepts change over time just in mere weeks of what is considered beautiful for you shifts over time due to your personal interests and concerns. Great intuition problem is that every celebrity and every people or every person is considered beautiful by each and every single person as differently, because just because one person is beautiful to one eye, that doesn't mean some part of it is beautiful to another. But second here, let's do some weighing and tell you why realizing beauty is more important than other people caring about beauty. First analysis here is that we do what makes you feel good. Notice that there was really no engagement to this, where he told you an entire principle argument from the first half, why doing what you feel and doing when expressing yourself makes you feel good, so it's principally obligated and principally justified to do so. But second of all, we told you why other people are oppressive. We say further societal backlash for being integrated within the society. What this now means is that this is a great mitigation against their case of why this is oppressive, because we tell you that society developed onto a point and is constantly developing into a point where they have many other fashions and they're accepting many other beauty standards during the debate. But thirdly, we say, and most importantly, that aesthetic beauty in and of itself does not make like a toxic beauty standards or does not make toxic standards that we talked about. What the argument for this is that number one, there's human emotion, there's basic human contrary to this. It's not really because what you view of this is ugly and bad, it's rather because things like spite, it's because things like jealousy that influences you to do this. What this now means is that it proves you that aesthetic beauty is not a oppressive in and of itself, but rather an external factors such as your societal life or your other conditions such as jealousy and spite that's influencing you to do this. I'll take a POI before I move on. No, they don't. Thirdly, then let's talk about why this is practically better on our side, why aestheticness is just better on our side. First, we tell you that their side provides no analysis why aesthetic is objective. This is really, really important because insofar as we tell you that our side provides multiple layers of analysis of why one is different for every single person, but two entire concepts change over time, this proves your analysis of why aesthetic is subjective, therefore meaning that aesthetic that is not inherently oppressive because you don't follow all these different beauty standards. We see that's jealousy and spite, that's external factors that's different from aesthetic beauty. But let's take the bullet and still say that we agree with their case and say that yes, those like this spite and jealousy is caused by aesthetic beauty or not. Why do we still win this? Weighing over this, we say aesthetic beauty, you can only know yourself to realize the potential of others. What this now means is that this proves you, and this is because of two reasons. First, we tell you that not only one, you can express yourself to others, which can like persuade your other shifting factors, but second, we tell you that yourself is probably more important than others. Caring for yourself and having a good standards for yourself is generically more important than other people judging you, other people saying this. If you hate yourself, if you hate yourself, it's still better than like other people not hating you or whatever. We say yourself is more important. Lastly, then let's do a quick extension about Charlie's speech, and I'll tell you, even though I already did that in the start of my speech, let's do an extension of Charlie's speech. First, we tell before I run out of time, very proud to oppose.
We thank that speaker for that fine speech. The speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 31 seconds. Now to end the substantive portion for side proposition, I would like to invite the government whip. You're here.
I just want to check if I'm visible and audible.
Yep, you're both.
All right. Just set my time. As Crystal Ren once said, the problem is that we as a society simply accept these unrealistic standards that you have to be thin to be perfect, to be beautiful, to be successful at work and have a good relationship. And this is making us sick. This self-loathing is crippling us humans. And this is what opposition is standing with. They believe that saying up unrealistic standards is good for a community, but I'm sorry, what are their arguments? How does that help the community? If we follow opposition's footsteps, it's only going to bring out racist views, body dysmorphia, problems with mental health, self-harm, depression, anxiety, and a worst case scenario because we can't even handle their body anymore because of the horrible standards of beauty around the world, even suicide. And as proposition speaker, we can stop this and win this debate. It's funny for us that when second speaker comes in and says that beauty standards are formed by jealousy. These standards are not formed by jealousy, but instead they're formed by harmful stereotypes, hierarchy, and oppression. The clash point is whichever team that can maintain the feeling of self-worth and self-love at the same time telling people that they are worth it, benefiting the world. Win this debate. No, thank you. I mean, come on, judge. From this clash point, you can already tell where this debate is going to go. I hope the rest of my speech can tell you that why we have won this debate, and you should stand with us proposition, starting with refutation. The two arguments we have presented is firstly how aesthetic view concepts are toxic and combined with majority views. They have tried to refute us by saying how there are many countries that support different types of styles, but how does refutation make sense? Judge, did the refutation really stand? Have they successfully refuted our argument? How have you guys proven that your side is better? Our side is better because our side will have to argue that oppressing people and depriving them of a self-worth because they do not fit with the current beauty standards is actually a good thing taken.
You are talking about European mainstream oppressive aesthetic beauty, not aesthetic beauty.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
You are talking about European mainstream oppressive aesthetic beauty, not aesthetic beauty.
I don't think I get your POI, so I'm just going to move on. I've guys proven that your side is better. We have proven that our side is better because the other side had to argue that oppressing people and depriving them from their self-worth because they do not fit in the current beauty standards is actually a good thing. And just because you're accepted in some countries, it doesn't mean you don't know about different styles. Most of the same style of aesthetic beauty, and if you're not getting accepted by many people, it makes it incredibly hard for people to accept that they are worth it for themselves, and there are different standards everywhere. But if you're not able to show that by giving people body dysmorphia, depression, anxiety, and as I said before, losing them from their self-worth. And you have to feel that that's actually a good thing. You have to feel that you are giving any benefit that oppressing people is a good thing. And the constant change of definition of beauty is also a good thing. So panels, they have not successfully refuted our argument. Second argument presented is how this creates a culture of body shaming and beauty standards. Our argument still stands because there are many other beauty because they think that there are many other beauty standards in the world because of evolution. I'm sorry, but that does not make sense. About 65% of the world has the same beauty standards, and we can provide analysis that aesthetic beauty standards can even go against one race. A beauty standard may go against one race, and if you're a part of that race, no matter where you go, you're still being oppressed because you don't fit the beauty standards. And then move on to their argument, refuting their argument, because we can provide more refutation. They said that aesthetic concept shapes your identity, but the proposition adds that they have to prove why it is going to oppress other groups of people, not on whether it's good or bad, because because sure, we can see a concept that's good and it gives people happiness, but still oppresses people. Surely this is evidence that their argument does not make sense. Now, they also point out the fact that there are many different standards to beauty, but judge, do you realize they cannot support the fact that they want oppression to happen? They most clearly say for opposition to have to agree that to the fact that they are not inherently oppressive, and so far they're not proven the fact that they are not inherently oppressive. And you talk about oppression and why it's good for people, no other concept does it even work. How can opposition say their arguments are better than yours? We surely win this debate. The reason we have won this clash because we have successfully proven how our arguments perfectly balance with the clash and win this debate. So proud to propose, and we win this debate. Thank you.
We thank that speaker for that fine speech. The speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Now to end the substantive portion of this debate, I would like to invite opposition whip. Here.
All right, so am I visible and audible?
Yep, you are both.
I'm just gonna set up my thing over there. Okay, my pronouns are gender. I apologize verbally. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judge, before anything, I want to clearly differentiate the concept of aesthetic beauty from structural stereotypes that derive from it. The concept of aesthetic beauty is, first of all, diverse standards exist and all people have subjective perception as to what is beautiful. But then second of all, what you perceive as pretty and appealing changes from person to person. So the concept itself is personal. It's about expressing yourself, showing yourself regarding what you think is beautiful. This is different from people going on social media and posting hating comments. That is not the inherent concept of aesthetic beauty. That is structural problems that people create within of itself. That is the problem of those people who act in an oppressive manner, not aesthetic beauty inherently being like oppressive in principle. 2 classes. First of all, in principle, which that achieves the principle of identity and the ability to express oneself. Second of all, which that can better promote different forms of beauty being appreciated. The first class, which side achieves the principle of identity and ability to express oneself, because I think there was a very poor lack of engagement to this down the side. Why is the importance to express oneself important? It shows who we are. It makes you feel better. It makes you happier because you can artistically express yourself and what you think is beautiful. So in concept, aesthetic beauty is not oppression. It's about what you think is beautiful, and you're showing and expressing that individual perception and your perception on aesthetic beauty to other people. Because in principle, what you think is beautiful is more important than the other people's perceptions as to what you think is beautiful. Meaning that clearly this political clash is important in the sense that these main stakeholders who are actually holding their own standard of aesthetic beauty is the most important stakeholder in today's debate. We're going on to the second clash, if you want.
If you think something is beautiful, but other people don't, and they oppress you because of it, will you still be happy?
Explain why that is not the concept of aesthetic beauty being oppressive. That is people acting in an oppressive manner. That is social structural reasoning, and that is social structural problems. That is not the problem of aesthetic beauty. I'm going to explain that more in my second time, which can promote different forms of beauty being appreciated. I think the first thing I want to point out is why oppression is just unlikely to happen as a whole, even if we fit that into these European, narrow scope of European standards, that is the only type of standards the government is willing to discuss. I think because society is progressing and because there's many different diverse artists, I think these ideas are outdated in the status quo. Right now on social media, if you see that somebody is out, shame on them for not fitting beauty standards in the comments, you receive backlash. People, rather than oppressing, they defend in the current society. The few people who do attack because somebody else doesn't fit their subjective beauty standards, they are shamed and they are framed as unreasonable. So in this culturally diverse society, it's extremely unlikely for oppression to be prominent or for it to happen. But then the second thing I want to prove is that even if in that scenario, we're debating over the concept of aesthetic beauty itself, not the generalized standard of aesthetic beauty that exists. This means that in principle or in concept, aesthetic beauty is an individual perception of what they think is aesthetically pleasing in a subjective manner. Beauty standards don't just exist inside mainstream society, as this framing was presented from the very start of our leader opposition speech. There are different beauty standards for each community. American people have their own beauty standards. Western people have their own beauty standards. Asian people have their own beauty standards. This means that even if people came on media for a person being fat, in our very, very worst case scenario where that actually happens, we think that this isn't the concept of with beauty standards being inherently oppressive. Rather, this is the problem of people who are making rash judgments. This is the problem of people who are hurting other people's feelings. This is not an inherent problem or oppressive nature of beauty standards within itself. Lastly, let's prove on the comparative why it's still better under our side. Because we have the concept of aesthetic beauty, nowadays society is expanding and they're breaking oppressions regarding beauty. With the concept of aesthetic beauty, people are better able to express what they think is beautiful and what they believe to be aesthetically pleasing. And we can see this through cultural expansion and many people trying out like many different types of fashion and just representing many different aspects of what is considered beautiful. So with this, I think we clearly achieved the impact of people better being able to express themselves in a cultural manner as well. But this is also existing oppression regarding beauty standards because people are better able to express themselves through the form of aesthetic beauty and people are proud to be on side of the day.
We thank that speaker for that fine speech. The speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Now to end the opposition case as a whole, I would like to invite the opposition reply. Here.
Speech will begin in 3, 2, and 1. Please don't buy into Proposition Squirrel. They debate on the motion, beauty standards do more harm than good. That is not the motion. The motion is it inherently bad or not? And remind you, inherently means inescapable, permanent, and permanently its characteristics are bad. So, like for example, fast food isn't inherently bad because it is not healthy, that is a harm, but it is tasty, so there are benefits. But their side is just saying that, oh, fast food is bad because it is unhealthy and makes you fat, and they just can't win the debate by repeating. And we proved successfully why there are benefits of that. So that proves that is why not inherently oppressive. Identity, expression, and social movements. So how do we already prove why aesthetic beauty is necessary for all of that to happen? That is because a big part of identity comes from how I look, which is connected to aesthetic beauty, which shows happiness of people. Social movements, Afrocentric fashion in itself broke the Eurocentric standards, breaking oppression actually, and Frida Kahlo's art, breaking gender norms that were made by society, which is the opposite of being oppressive. The visual beauty of that is necessary for the movements to happen because it was literally led by it. And their main push is, even if there is a social movements that are led by beauty and identity as forms, it is always bad because people get oppressed by European standards. But that is not our responsibility to prove why they get zero influence by European mainstream standards, because we prove why they still get benefits, and we already largely mitigated most of them of getting the influence from us. And they just can't wash out our benefits just because that is true. And is it oppressive for the most part? No. Even people who are not treated as hard in European mainstream oppressive standards, they still have an ability to show identity to the communities that do actually accept them. And expressing what you think is beautiful is good too. Forming identity and telling who you are creates happiness of people. And we would also like to mention that they only talk about human-facing bodies. It is funny. The first thing the Prime Minister says that it includes everything from art to architecture. And they start by saying that, but they immediately drop that only talk about human-facing bodies. And they never had a point rebutting against the European, like Asian arts or African arts, because it is very true that they get accepted by many communities, and we simply had no way to rebut to that. And that is why we believe that our side should take this debate.
We thank that speaker for that fine speech. The speaker spoke for 2 minutes and 8 seconds. That's 2:08. Now to end this finals as a whole, I would like to invite the government reply. Here.
Am I audible and visible?
Yep, you are both.
Thank you. The other team seems to think that we have to prove why if aesthetic beauty was a person, then it would be oppressive. Obviously, aesthetic beauty alone is not oppressive because aesthetic beauty is literally not alive. It is how people perceive it. It is about how people enforce the concept into society. Panel, I really hope you understand this because I think this misunderstanding is what cost opposition the debate. Also, I don't think opposition understands the burden that they have to prove in this debate. They have to prove why these aesthetic beauty standards that are prevalent in society right now are not oppressive and are not a bad thing that society enforces. They only proved why it's a good thing because you can express yourself and there's many different forms of aesthetic beauty. Therefore, it doesn't oppress people. We prove to you why these majority forms of aesthetic beauty standards are going to make minority groups feel oppressed and are going to make toxic cultures within our society. We also told you that although aesthetic beauty itself is subjective and can bring joy and inspiration, it is the societal enforcement and the narrow definition of beauty that gives rise to oppressive dynamics. This receives absolutely no rebuttal in the debate because all they responded to was that, oh, there are different forms of beauty too. This rebuttal doesn't work. Also, the POI they asked my third speaker on how we're only talking about European-centric views, not general views, but excuse me, we told you so many times on why white views of aesthetic beauty is generally the international standard of beauty. Being skinny, having a nice waist, having abs, sunsets, minimalistic designs. All of these are white-centric views, but are internationally taken to be seen as aesthetic beauty standards. So I don't really understand why the opposition keeps harping on and on about why we are wrong because we only talk about one view, so that it's obviously another flaw in their case. The second and third talk a lot about this in their speech on why stereotypes are not derived from aesthetic beauty. But that is not what we said. We said these aesthetic beauty standards carry stereotypes along and make people feel bad in their bodies and make people feel like they don't fit in if they don't look a certain way. We don't want to enforce more toxic concepts that break society apart. So proud to propose.
We thank that speaker for that fine speech. The speaker spoke for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. That's 2:15. I would like to thank both teams for that wonderful debate. You guys can